When playing a Pokemon game, you might assume that you have access to everything in the game, but what if I told you that you don't? What if there were some weird, obscure, unused elements in the game that you can't normally access? Like in Generation 1, for example. Did you know that instead of HMs, you were supposed to get tools to help you travel through the Kanto region? Like an actual surfboard instead of just riding across the water on one of your Pokemon with the HM surf? There's some unused elements in the game suggesting this, as well as badges being actual items that you can just store in your bag. Since the bag space in this game is very limited, I'm very thankful that they changed that. But Generation 1 in general has a ton of unused elements that could be made in its own video in itself, to be honest. But what about other generations? Unused content for Generations 1 and 2 has been covered a lot already, most notably with the beta for Pokemon Gold and Silver that leaked not too long ago, so I want to focus on newer generations in this video. Did you know that in Ruby and Sapphire, it was intended for it to snow in the game too? It does rain in some sections of the Hoenn region, but actual weather was suggested to be planned for Generation 3, and it can be made to snow in Littleroot Town. It didn't start to snow in Pokemon games until Generation 4, where the Pokemon Shellos was introduced, but there even exists a back sprite for Shellos in the files of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, suggesting that it was originally planned to be in the Hoenn region. There's unused dolls for the Reggie trio in the international versions of Ruby and Sapphire that were intended to be placed in your secret base, but were available in the Japanese versions through an event, as well as this weird placeholder sprite for a giant yellow monster that you can still access and control, and was apparently from a game called Mendel Palace made by Game Freak in the 90s. Pokemon X and Y surprisingly have a lot of unused elements to them too, as you can see on the Cutting Room Floors page linked in the description. One of the weirder bits of unused content are the apricorn balls from Heart Gold and Soul Silver existing in the game files of X and Y, and can be hacked in and used properly. This could suggest that apricorns were planned to be used for Pokemon X and Y, as although you could hack these Pokeballs into Pokemon Black and White as well, they weren't functional in Black and White, so it's interesting to see they were functional in X and Y. Speaking of Pokemon Black and White, remember the gems from those games? They had a gem for each type, and it would boost the power of a move of that certain type. In Pokemon X and Y, the only gem you can obtain is the normal gem, but the fairy gem also exists in the game files. Seeing as fairy type didn't exist in Black and White, it was introduced with X and Y, they didn't need to add another one for X and Y, just for all of the gems to go unused except for the normal gem. Now, one of the most underexplored parts of Pokemon X and Y was Zygarde and Zygarde's story. We saw it explained upon a bit more with the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon, it was kind of just thrown in there. But the signature moves that Zygarde has, 1000 Arrows and 1000 Waves, did exist in Pokemon X and Y, despite no Pokemon, including Zygarde, being able to learn it in Pokemon X and Y and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire for that matter. Since they ended up being the signature moves of Zygarde in Pokemon Sun and Moon, this could mean that some sort of Zygarde event was planned for X and Y to expand upon its story a bit, or even perhaps a Pokemon Z version was planned to include the Zygarde events from Sun and Moon, much like how Platinum added Giratina Origin Form over Diamond and Pearl. This is also super minor and was just a placeholder in X and Y, but there exists this graphic of just the number 4. It caught me off guard when I was looking at unused content for this game, and I just thought it was pretty funny. This is also an excuse to segue into the terrains, as there are 4 of them. These are most known from the Tapus in Pokemon Sun and Moon having abilities that summon each of the 4 terrains. However, they were introduced in Pokemon X and Y first as regular moves you can go for. There does exist unused terrain effects in the files of Pokemon X and Y though, one named Aqua and the other named Ice. The placeholder terrain background for them is just the Wi-Fi battling backdrop, but having some sort of terrain for Ice would have been pretty cool, no pun intended. I don't really know what it could have done compared to what the other terrains already do, so let me know in the comments down below what your ideas are for potential ice terrain in a Pokemon game and what Pokemon could have gotten it. Maybe if we did get an ice terrain in X and Y, there would have been a 5th Tapu that's part ice, which would have been neat. Now, since we've been talking about Pokemon Sun and Moon so much, how about we look at some unused content from those games as well? A lot of it are holdovers from Pokemon X and Y, like AZ's Floette, but did you know there's an unused laundry room, bathroom, and garage that was supposed to be in the player's house? My theory is that the garage was intended to be a place where you could change the Rotom forms because of the boxes on the floor, or maybe there's just boxes on the floor because it's a garage. I don't really know. And I guess they cut the bathroom and laundry room because there was just no reason to go into them. The weirdest unused room though is a room that looks a lot like a gym in Sun and Moon. Gyms don't exist in these games, so this could have been an early design for the Cantonian gym in Mali City that was later added in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, or maybe it's just a super early build where gyms were perhaps intended from the start. There's also unused strings of text and a symbol indicating that Pokemon Go connectivity was planned for Pokemon Sun and Moon, but since Pokemon Go came out only a few months before the release of Sun and Moon, it was never fully implemented in this game, and we didn't see it implemented in a Pokemon game until Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Zygarde 10% was first introduced in Sun and Moon, and there's an unused overworld model for Zygarde 10% that did end up being used in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon though. And now, how about we take a look at everyone's favorite Pokemon game next, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Here is an unused TM label written in Japanese. This is just a placeholder too, but the Japanese text translates to dummy, and seeing a TM just called dummy was too funny for me not to mention. A model exists for Applin's body too, without the apple. This could mean that it was planned to come out of the apple somehow, as there's no reason for it to ever have a body, and maybe behave similarly to Aegislash with its two different forms. There's this unused shirt too with a Pikachu drawn on the corner that the cutting room floor says could have been a placeholder, but I think it looks pretty cool. I'd definitely wear it if it was actually in the game. There's also some unused items, some of which were holdovers from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but other weird ones like the Explorer's Kit, Pal Pad, Worked Keys, Spray Duck, and Red Chain, all from the Sinnoh region. There's tons of unused items like this from previous regions in Sword and Shield, including some from Hoenn even, and I don't really know what this could mean. At first I thought maybe it was hints towards a Diamond and Pearl remake, and then I kept scrolling and saw items from pretty much every other generation. All the Mega Stones are here too as well, and the Magma Suit and Aqua Suit from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which are only needed for very brief portions of those games. Now, it is typical for Pokemon games to have holdover elements and items from the previous games, but Sword and Shield have the most holdovers by far. Seeing as prototype builds for Sword and Shield date back to as early as late 2017, right around the time Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out, I'm sure a lot has changed throughout its development. There's even assets left over for the Rotom dex that was in Sun and Moon, as well as this image titled Girl Rotom that is a pink Rotom, which never appeared in any Pokemon game, so I don't understand why it just exists in Sword and Shield. Super early builds of Sword and Shield even have this cool title screen featuring a different logo, and Pokemon that were never in the final game, most notably Mega Rayquaza, Greninja, and a regular Moltres. It's mostly pretty big and iconic Pokemon that are featured here, yet someone at Game Freak thought it was a good idea to just stick Bruxish in here as if it's nearly as iconic as the other Pokemon surrounding it. Now going back to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, there's an unused Arceus event. This one is pretty widely known, but I thought I'd cover it briefly, but basically it involves you getting the Azure Flute through an event, then using it on top of the Spirit Pillar to summon Arceus. This flute still exists in the game and is fully functional and can be obtained through hacking, but this event was scrapped because Game Freak thought it might be a bit too confusing for players to use. Diamond and Pearl have their fair share of leftover items that are unused of course, and also the Magma Stone. This item was unused in Diamond and Pearl, and wasn't from a previous Pokemon game, and remained unused all the way until Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 released nearly 5 years after Diamond and Pearl. I don't really know what type of functionality this item could have had in Diamond and Pearl, outside of some sort of relation to Heatran. Placeholders for the Rotom forms, Giratina Origin form, and Shaman Sky form exist in this game too, but they weren't fully added until Platinum version. Now let's wrap things up with Pokemon Black and White. There's an unused theater house that could have been meant for anything, perhaps contests or something in Nimbasa City, and there's also the Godstone item with the description that just says, a rare stone. It's unknown what this could have been intended to be used for, but my guess is it relates to Arceus somehow. The number 4 also exists in the Pokemon Black and White files as a placeholder of course, along with its friends this time, 1 through 3, all with green backgrounds. A sprite sheet for a delivery man exists too, which was intended to be like the delivery man you find in the Marts in previous Pokemon games that gives you the Pokemon you got from mystery gift events. Black and White surprisingly don't have that many unused elements to them compared to some other Pokemon games, as Sword and Shield had a lot more than I expected, but seeing as unused content from newer Pokemon games aren't talked about nearly as much as unused content from Generation 1 and 2 Pokemon games, it was a lot fun going over and researching these topics on the cutting room floor, Bulbapedia, and of course various tweets from Dr. Lava over the years, all of which will be linked in the description. Make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe if you enjoyed. Have a good rest of your day, and bye-bye.